Tending these pot plants is painful for Elna Brandt. It's something she does to honor the memory of her mother, Angela van Wyk. In June last year, Angela was murdered at the Rus-a-Bietjie home for the elderly in Springs on the East Rand. Her son-in-law Philip has pieced together what happened.
Daar was ongedwonge toegang, so of sy moes vir hulle oopgemaak het, of sy moes die deur oopgelos het, wat waarskynlik ook kon wees. Tweedens, hulle het haar vasgemaak, hande en bene. Hulle het iets in haar mond gestop, 'n baie groot objek.
Philip went to identify his mother-in-law's body at the mortuary.
Dit was skokkend. Ja, om daai prentjie te moes verwerk, dit was die moeilike deel. Want dis nie soos ons haar onthou nie, dis nie soos sy lyk nie. 'n Mens het daar eers van die gruwsaamheid van die moord bewus geraak.
Nobody has been charged for Angela's murder, but the family have their suspicions, having read accounts of how Hitte Potgieter was killed in Nelspruit. They have no proof, but are joining the dots to Sean Oosthuizen and John de Plooy.
Dink wat nou begin gebeur, is dat die storie begin uitkom en families begin oor die verskillende dorpsgrense heen die boodskap kry en sien dat daar 'n modus operandi is.
There's a lot of investigating officers in different towns coming forward now and say, listen, I've seen this case in the press, and it's very similar to mine. Similar modus operandi, yeah. Also at old age homes, things that were stolen, the way the people were killed, everything, it's very similar, but unfortunately you won't be able to prove anything until it's proven in court.
After every murder, the elderly victim was locked in and the key to their flat was missing.
Om daai gevoelloosheid te hê, dat jy weet, hierdie dame laat ek aan haar eie genade oor, en ek sluit ook die deur, dat niemand haar kan help nie, en ek vat die sleutel saam met my, dat die tydperk voordat sy ontdek word, soveel meer word, soveel uitgestel word. Dit voel vir my amper 'n onmenslikheid.
Things are also falling into place for Leonie Shepherd from Roodepoort. Her mother, Lillis Mary, was bound, gagged and suffocated in her flat last year. The CCTV cameras weren't working that day.
It is senseless. Nobody can make sense about that, and it's very difficult to understand why people do something like that. For what at the end of the day?
Lillis was killed 2 weeks before Barbara Fenton was killed in Alberton. Leonie says Nelspruit-based investigating officer Colonel Erhard Straw contacted her to discuss the way her mother was killed, suspecting Sean and John because of the similarities.
Both my mom and the Alberton lady were after the lady in Nelspruit. So as far as I think he was the one that noticed a needle in the haystack, and he is most definitely the one, I think, that picked up the similar facts of the cases, which we are very grateful for. Otherwise, nobody would have known. You would have thought that it's just a single crime that happened like that. Whereas indeed it may be at the hands of people which you can call a serial criminal.
It certainly seems to be the case, says clinical psychologist Bronwyn Stollars. Serial killers usually commit multiple murders on separate occasions with a cooling-off period in between. And robbery isn't the primary motive.
Any financial gain is what we call a secondary gain to committing the offence, and that actually the primary motivation is a psychological motivation to committing the offence. They felt the need to do it. That need might be centred around things like control, power, revenge, sexual fantasies.
She says serial killers behave like con artists and their modus operandi depends on what works for them.
What is the easiest way for example, in this case, for me to gain access to these ladies' homes? What are the con stories, which is that please may I charge my phone, or please may I have a sip of water, or please may I use your bathroom, is a con story to allow them access to the victim. That's worked in this many number of cases. I'm not now going to change that modus operandi to something else when it's already working quite well for me.
We asked her about the removal of the victim's front or back door keys.
On the crime scene, we then see elements of what we call a signature. Is he keeping those keys as a souvenir, as a reminder of his interactions and his offense with that particular victim?
Serial killers usually operate solo. A group adds a different dynamic, she says.
A group is unusual, and I definitely think that one would have to look at what was each person's role in the dynamic of the offense. There may very well be, in a group case, the primary individual who is there to commit the psychologically motivated crime, who's there to commit the murder, who has the fantasy, that need for power and dominance, the aggression, who commits the act, and then subsidiaries, perhaps, who are involved in different ways for different reasons.
Although there isn't yet DNA evidence linking Sean and John, or even Mandy, to the murders of Angela and Lillis, detectives can consider other pointers.
What are the patterns of behavior here that make us think that there's a high likelihood that the suspect who committed these cases also committed these cases? And that becomes very important and is admitted as under similar fact evidence.
Which could lead to convictions.
And has done so. We've had very, very good success with the prosecution of cases based on linkage analysis. And that's important for those victims, families, and for them to have some sort of closure for their cases to go through the justice system.
People are cowards. They choose the victims. They choose vulnerable people. They choose the elderly. They know they are alone. They don't even accost them by themselves. They go in a group. And, you know, it's senseless and it's callous.
Letta says the elderly can be too trusting, herself included.
Ons help. Jy het deur die lewe het jy gegaan en nou is jy bejaard en nou kan jy help want jy is stil en rustig. Jy het die tyd om te help. En hoe ouer mens word, hoe sagter word jy in jou hart. Dan vra hulle die toilet. Nou ja, jy help hulle. Jy laat hulle inkom. En ek glo dit het hulle ook gedoen wat matroon het gesê. Jy maak nie daai trellie donker. As hulle sê hulle soek 'n toilet, dan sê jy vir hulle maak hulle daar nat. Maar jy maak nie hierdie trellie donker van jou oop nie.
Ursula wants justice for those who weren't as lucky as her.
They should never, never be let out of jail. Never.
That's all from us this week. Please do give us your feedback. Our Twitter handle is @checkpoint_ENCA and our email address checkpoint@enca.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Ngepile Mabuse.